words to introduce you and to welcome you in Prague. I wanted to say that Vladimír Benko is our old, and now I just say, well, stop. He's not old, but he's an old friend of us from the very, very past. And we are very happy that he is here and that he will tell us something about the very, very big web corpora. So please take the floor.
So, many thanks for inviting me here to tell you something about my recent work. At the first slide you can see my two affiliations. My main employer is the Slovak Academy of Sciences. I'm working at the Ludovic Sturt Linguistic Institute in the Department of Contemporary Lexicology and Lexicography, where I'm supporting dictionary lexicographic projects and building Slovak and Czech language corpora. And I have a small part-time job at the university in a small unit called UNESCO Chair in Translation Studies, in plurilingual and intercultural communication. The very strange name is connected with the fact that UNESCO is an organization that changes priorities from time to time. The unit was originally called UNESCO Chair in Translation Studies because 15 years ago, when it was established, translation, interpretation was a priority. And recently the priorities have been changed. Translation isn't priority anymore, but multilingualism, Africa, gender studies, something else is the priority. So we are doing the same, but we had to change the name, apply for a new grant. There was a period without the UNESCO name in the name of our institution. From the linguistic point of view, the preposition is interesting. In English, I was not aware of it. Chair of something is a person, and chair in something is a department. First I thought it's something related to UNESCO only, but not. You can find many chairs in something in America. So, web corpora. The idea of web corpora was first articulated some 15 years ago. It's very simple. Internet contains lots of text, so why not to use it for linguistic research? It's easy accessible. It's in many languages, many more languages than other sources. And using just search engines for linguistic queries, it's inferior because, of course, you can look for words or expressions in Google, but you cannot say, I want to find something that contains preposition and a noun in dative. Yes, Google is not able to do something like that. So the name of the area of corpus is called Web as Corpus, and the basic names connected with it is Adam Kilgariff, who has died recently, George Greffenstadt, and a group of people from Bologna, Marco Baroni, Shert Sharov from Leeds, who created an initiative called WACI, Web as Corpus Cool Initiative, and created first set of web corpus. So when speaking in quite generally, there are three properties of corpora that are interesting from this perspective. First, of course, is language. Most corpora are monolingual that contain texts from one language only or some variants. And there are corpora that contain more than one language. Basic multilingual or bilingual corpus is parallel corpus. A parallel corpus contains text and translations. Having two languages, A and B, there are three possibilities. A is source language, B is the translations, or vice versa. Or, even more frequently, neither A or B nor B is the source language, but it's a translation from something from C. Parallel corpora are a beautiful tool for many things, for linguistic research, for translation, interpretation, for natural language processing, but there is one great disadvantage. We do not have enough text for several language pairs. Take, for example, Slovak and Lithuanian. Yes? How many texts have been translated from Slovak to Lithuanian and from Lithuanian to Slovak in the whole history of Slovak as a language and Lithuanian as a language? It's impossible to build a large Slovak-Lithuanian corpus. You can take materials from international institutions, but you have only some genres, some domains there. That's why for both linguistics, translation studies, and NLP, we have to use other type of corpora that do not contain translations and that are called comparable. Text in comparable corpora have to have something in common. The same text type, genres, registers, same time of origin, same strategy of annotation, and etc. And what is very important, the same size. Between parallel and unrelated text, there are several intermediate steps. This is taxonomy by Serge-Sharoff. First step is so-called noisy parallel. It's usually text that are translated and localized. You can quite easily imagine a manual for a vacuum cleaner. Yes, it has text in 25 languages. Everything is one-to-one, with one exception: the address of the maintenance company. Yes, it's the noise. From the point of view of corpus lexicography, it's a noise. Then you have strongly comparable texts that contain, say, reporting on the same events, or Wikipedia article on the same topic. Then you have weakly comparable texts. You have only same genre or register, but they describe different events. For example, Bundestag and British Parliament debates on health reform. And then you have corpora that contain completely unrelated texts, but nevertheless we can use them for contrastive research and on NLP. So when speaking about texts derived from corpora, we usually speak only about these two last options: weakly comparable and unrelated. The second property of corpora that is important for web corpora is the size. Here you can see the history of corpus linguistics. Basically, every decade, the size of the largest corpus has been increased by the order of magnitude. Brown corpora family, co-built, BNC, the Czech National Corpus. And then is the advent of web corpora. You have this WAC corpora in the 10 years ago, and now 1010 corpora by lexical computing. The largest corpus I have seen online is an English web corpus that is more than 80 billion words. This is my I suggest this way of assigning labels to the sizes. This, of course, it will be shifted after every 10 years, yes, like t-shirt sizes. And this is what we called very large now. It's from my article in Moscow this year. My partner suggested that the Russian name Sverhbalshoi, very large in Russian. Can you imagine how much is 1 billion? You can compare it to the Bible. I wasn't able to find what is the size of the Czech Bible, but if I remember correctly, it is more than King James Bible. So in original languages, it's something more than 500,000 of words. The problem is that in original languages, there is not enough punctuation, so it also may have some influence of it. This authorized Bible used in English-speaking countries, King James Bible, is something more than 750,000. So 1 billion is 1,300 Bibles. So if you take a Bible that has 5 centimeters and I make a bookshelf, it will be 65 meters long, yes, for 1 billion. It's a lot. And the second comparison, in reading. This is average rate of reading, 200 words per minute. So let's suppose that we take somebody and give him or her a job of reading. Yes, he will read during his or her working hours. How much he or she will read? So 12,000 words per hour, 90,000 words per working day, 8 hours, yes? During the year, in Slovakia, there are 52 weekends, approximately 105 free days, 10 bank holidays. There are 13 bank holidays, but some of those are during weekends. And 30 days the maximum vacation, so it's about 220 working days. So in a year you can read something more than 21 million words. And during your working life, in Slovakia, the compulsory education ends at 16. You don't need any higher education for reading. Yes, it's enough. So let's start reading at 16 and retire in 62. You have 46 years of active life. How much you read? Not 1 billion. To read 1 billion, you will not be allowed to retire at 62. You'll need some two and something more years. Why I'm thinking about it? It is not possible to analyze such quantity of text by reading. You need some tools for aggregations, for sorting out interesting things, yes. And the third interesting topic in web corpora is text origin. Something what we now call traditional corpora are composed of texts that are covered by copyrights. And the texts are provided by the owners of the copyright. And you have 3 basic text types. It's fiction, it's non-fiction, and it's media, newspaper, magazine, so on. This is also the main problem in creation traditional corpora, because if you want to deal with these copyrights correctly, you have to make an agreement with the owner of the copyright. He or she have to sign a license agreement, and regardless of the quantity of text he or she will supply, the overhead is the same. Yes. You can have a very productive author that can give you the old novels written during his lifespan, but you can have also a poet who has written two very small books of verses with several thousand of words, but the overhead is the same. That's why most traditional corpora are composed mostly of newspaper text, because one license agreement covers it all. Yes. Web corpora, you can download text easily, quickly, with little overhead, but the copyright status is often not clear. You don't know. There are several ways how the owner of the web page can indicate that this text shouldn't be copied. The basic tool is the so-called robots file that indicates so this part of the text of the site shouldn't be copied, and the tools usually observe these rules. But most other sites just indicated in written, this text shouldn't be copied. If you have several millions of web pages in your corpus, you cannot deal this individually. It's not possible. For nobody it's possible. And moreover, the big players are doing that as well. If you insert no part of this publication may be reproduced in Google, you get 8 million of hits. So Google is doing the same. Microsoft is doing the same. Even Cessnam is doing the same. Maybe the scope is not that large, but I think it just indicates the difference in the size of the Czech part of internet and the English part of internet. Yes. Yes, but people who are working in the area of web corpora are aware of the problem. It is articulated in every conference. It is discussed. And the answer usually is, by now we don't know that somebody would sue Google. Yes. Moreover, this law system in different countries are different. In America, you have something that is called fair use. If you do not make money of using this text, so it's considered fair, and nobody will sue it. It is not the case in Europe. We don't have anything like that. But people working in digital humanities are trying to persuade the European Commission and the Parliament to deal with such a problem. Usually it is not dangerous to collect the data and to use the data. What is dangerous is to distribute the data. Especially Germans are frightened to give you something because you are not allowed to distribute it to anybody. What are the main differences between traditional corpora and web corpora? You have different types, text types and genres. There is almost no fiction. There are some servers, some sites that collect fiction, all sorts of graphomans, yes. Blogs, some part of blogs is also like fiction. But there are many new text types and genres, presentation of institutions, companies, various information portals, e-shops and blog, social media, discussions, and so on. You have different registers. Large proportion of the text is informal language. It's not the case in traditional corpora. In traditional corpora, informal language can be partially found in fiction, in dialogues. But here, in discussion, nobody is taking care. Lots of non-standard orthography, missing punctuation, missing capital letters, missing capitalization or capitals only, missing diacritics is very important for languages like Slovak and Czech, or even missing spaces. People do not care, or if you have things like Twitter, where the size of the message is limited, so to cope with these constraints, the authors of the messages simply do not use spaces. Creation time. Most texts found in internet are fresh. You have something like Project Gutenberg, where you have old fiction not covered by copyright. Something like that exists in Slovakia as well. It's so-called the golden font of the SME daily. There are 19th century fiction digitalized by volunteers. But it's a very, very small part of internet. Most texts are really fresh. What is problem? We are not able to find out how old the texts are. I do not understand quite how it works, but I was told that only in some cases you can get the timestamp of the file, the original file. So even this information is not reliable. The only reliable information is the date, the timestamp of downloading the text. So the text cannot be newer, yes, but it can be much older. Emotions are often expressed by typography or punctuations. You have lots of various character repetitions. Ano with 6A. Repetitions of punctuation characters. 3 exclamation marks followed by 3 quotation marks. All capital expressions that denotes crying. Yes, if you want to cry to somebody, you write the whole sentence in capitals. Things like emoticons. Very often you can find language code switching, especially in discussions. And some very popular servers on baby caring, on cooking, have people discuss in their languages. You have also a lot of meta discussion. They mutually explain themselves what does it mean, what this ingredient in Czech means in Slovak, so that they could understand. My former colleague Mira Nabilkova is doing a research of this meta communication. The same situation is in Ukrainian websites, because Ukraine is a bilingual country. Everybody is supposed to understand the other language, so everybody is using his or her own language. Especially these 2 factors are very important when dealing with web corpora, because the traditional NLP tools usually didn't take into account. For example, emoticons. A program for sentence splittings should recognize an emoticon as an end of the sentence indicator, because it's usually at the end of the sentence. Yes. Yes, it is. I was not aware before analyzing that. What's that? Battery. Yes. Okay. So now about our project. The project is called Aranea. It's a joint project of both my institutions. And what was the motivation? I can divide the motivation on 2 sides. On the negative sides, that we didn't have something, so we didn't have enough corpora for teaching corpus linguistics at the university, because the available corpora didn't cover all languages that we wanted to have. And even for the languages we did have, the user interface for the corpus managers were very different. So if you look into a Mannheim corpus or in Berlin corpus, it's something that doesn't resemble British national corpus, let alone the Spanish corpus and the Russian corpus. So it means that you cannot have a mixed language classroom, yes, because the tasks you can give to the students have to be tailored to the corpus management system. Okay, Sketch Engine is not the... Yes? Okay. Thanks. On the positive side, in spring 2013, the last piece of software that was necessary for creation web corpora was published. It was the Spiderlink, the crawler. Everything else had been more or less available before. And we already had good experience with two Slovak web corpora. First, our web corpora was called Vanda. The name came with web and annotation. It has been produced by a program called Bootcat, the web version. I don't know whether you are familiar with the concept of creating web corpus by sending queries to search engines. It's an idea by Serge Sharoff from Leeds. Take a list of medium frequency words and randomly query the search engines and then download the pages you get. So it's this technology can provide you with a very balanced corpus if the words you take are, say, adjectives or adverbs. It's very different general meaning. I was able to produce a corpus that was 200 million tokens large, and I stopped doing it because they changed the interface. I didn't want to. I didn't have time to adjust my program. So the corpus stopped at the size. And then we received the corpus that was later became the name SK1010 from Brno. It was one of the first Brno group corpus. It was almost 1 billion tokens long, by Honza Pomicalek, who was the main author of the tool chain. So, what were the main design decisions? I call the project Slovak-centric because it should contain all languages that are used, spoken in Slovakia, in its neighboring countries, and the main foreign languages that are taught at Slovak universities. All the data should be crawled and pre-processed by approximately the same time. The processing by the same tools, or at least by the same methodology, if the tools cannot be the same because of the language. And what was important was the size. All corpora should be exactly the same size. And I have chosen so-called language neutral name. Language neutral for me is Latin, not English. Sorry. So Araneum is a Latin name for web or for a spider. It's neuter. The plural of it is Aranea. The problem of Latin is that it's a language with no codification institution. So in different dictionaries you can find different things about the words. So you can find dictionaries where spider is considered to be feminine and it's called Aranea. But I have picked up this version, yes. Regarding the size, you have two words, small and large, in Latin with very irregular creation of comparative and superative. So small is parvus, and in neuter, smaller is minus, and the small is minimum. Large is magnus, larger is maius, and superlative is maximum. It looks strange, but it is I have consulted it with our experts in Latin, so I believe it's correct. The name of language is obvious. For some corpora we have variants. Crudum, it means raw. It's corpus without filtration and deduplication. We have some corpora that have double or triple or more than triple annotation. And there are versions. The version system is similar to the system of versions of Ubuntu operating system. It's a year and months of publications, and data versions are Roman numbers. Regarding the sizes, the basic size is approximately 1 billion words. To have 1 billion words, you need more tokens, because up to the 20% of tokens is punctuation, special graphic characters, and other non-words like numbers. And the second basic size is minus. It's a 10% sample of maius. It's used for teaching purposes. Why for teaching purposes? It turned out that 1 billion is too much in a classroom, because you can hardly prevent a student to invoke a query operation by putting there some asterisk and some conditions that takes 5 minutes to evaluate, and it's not desirable during the lesson. Yes, so that's why this smaller corpus, that it's not small at all. 100 million, it's a BNC size or a Czech National Corpus SIN size. Yes, you can find there almost everything, but the query operations are much faster. There is a minimum version. It's used for testing. It's not generally accessible for the users. And for some languages, we have also maximum size, as much as we can get. And by now, there are only 3 languages with this size. Slovak, with almost 3 billion. Czech, something more than 3 billion. And Russian, it's about 11 billion. Russian was taken as an example of a language to test how much we can afford to process with our hardware. Some operations require a lot of memory, and our servers are not very powerful, so some operations we had to do on a different server, especially deduplication. All corpora are tokenized in a compatible way. All corpora are sentence segmented, and all corpora are deduplicated. It's a very large problem with web corpora. Web data are very duplicate. It's not only that the same text appears on different size. It's not only that you have something that is quoted somewhere else, but you also have things like an article with a discussion that constantly grows, and on a newspaper site the address can change, because on the date of publication it can appear on the front page, and then it moves to the archive with a different address, with discussion that is much larger, for just comparing these two versions that are not the same. Yes, you need the tool that do duplicate, that are able to detect duplicates on smaller segments than the whole documents. Everything is annotated by possibly free tools, and all text sets are mapped to a universal text set that is similar to universal dependencies, but it's not the same for two reasons. Because when I introduced that, universal dependencies was not available to me. It was the Google universal set was available, but I was not aware of it at the time. And the second reason was that I wanted to have it compatible with my sketch grammars that were much older. This is the basic set of tools that is now called the Brno pipeline. It consists of the crawler called Spiderlink. Spiderlink, are you aware of the program Spiderlink? Spiderlink is a specialized web crawler that is highly optimized for downloading the textual data, because it does on the fly web page encoding recognition, language recognition, and it on the fly does so-called boilerplate removal. Boilerplate is a term used for all these navigation elements, advertisements, the fixed parts of the web page that is not interesting linguistically for you. The name boilerplate, the motivation is very interesting. The term comes from the typographical terminology from the early 20th century, where newspapers were printed in lead, yes, but advertisements were produced from steel, because were used several times. And the steel used for this advertisement was from boilers, yes? So the metonymy, boilerplate, then remained as for advertisements in newspaper. We don't have any hot metal printing. In the English terminology, it remained boilerplate for advertisement. In electronic typography, in Czech it was stoček, but we don't use stoček in electronic typography anymore. Yes. So one of the modules of this program is by combination of rules and statistics, it tries to estimate what on the page is just a navigation or what is usable text. It uses a language model based on keywords, stop words for every language, and it uses the statistics of text. Usually these small buttons have much more HTML text than the large blocks of text that are usable for us, a linguist. Program for tokenization is a universal program. That's why it's called Unitalk. But for each language has you can provide a parameter file containing lists of abbreviations and special rules for all sorts of clitics, like all these apostrophes and hyphens in French that should be considered as a special. In English you have something similar as well. I've is usually split into parts. I is a pronoun, it's an abbreviation of a verb. A special tool for deduplication called Onion. It means one instance only. It's based on comparing not the whole documents, but the n-grams. It's highly customizable, and the main idea is, if the document or a segment, you can decide what sizes of text you will compare. So if a segment contains more than a threshold amount of n-grams already encountered in the previous text, it's considered duplicate, yes? So you can make experiments with it, and you can set what you want. Either you need a very deduplicated text, but it means that you delete something that might be useful for you. On the other hand, you need everything or as much as possible, but you are aware in that case that some duplicates will remain. And NoSketch Engine, you probably know, it's a corpus manager system. One tool you need that is not provided by Baroni people is the tagger. No. They have a morphologic analyzer for some languages called Mica that is provided, but they have a tagger called Desam that is not provided. It's simply, I was told that they were not able to make a package of it. It's somehow connected with their system, and the author hasn't time enough to make it available with the documentation. But they promised that it's a task for him for the next future to do that. So for most languages we use tree-tagger. That is free, but it's not open source. You can use it for non-commercial purposes, but you are not able to see how it works. It has lots of parameters, and nobody understands how to set them. I was given some setup by the author, but I don't understand why this setup is good or useful. There are only two languages by now that I was not able to tag with tree-tagger. It's Hungarian and Czech, because there is no language model for tree-tagger for Hungarian and for Czech. For Czech, I used the Morphodata for your tools, and for Hungarian, it was a tool called Hunpos, and it was the only languages I had to send my data to Budapest to have it tagged, because I have been told that it is too complicated, the setup is too complicated, so they prefer to make it for me. Other tools are, in fact, not compulsory. You can split sentences, and you can do some filtering, but you can live without it. So, but I did. I have my own sentence segmentations as very rudimentary, based on rules. Yes, there are some utilities. It's not interesting. What is very important if you need high-quality data is normalization, because the quality of web data is not very good. For example, you can find about 12 different types of Unicode spaces. So there are sequences of multi-spaces. You have these composite diacritics that you should put into normal diacritics. You have all sorts of soft hyphens, ligatures. And then I have written two sorts of filters. The first type of filter tries to correct the text, for example, by deleting the HTML markup that has survived, delete empty paragraphs, and so on. But what is more important, the second sort of filter is deleting whole document that do not comply to some quality standards. First is the document is incorrectly detected language. The language detection is based on a trigram, character trigram models. It's comparing the cosine similarity, And this is not very good for very close languages like Slovak and Czech. And even worse, it was for Russian and Bulgarian, because the Bulgarian alphabet is a true subset of the Russian character set. Yes, they do not have any extra characters. I think they have 3 characters less. So this doesn't work at all. It's also a parameter in Spiderling where you can set what is the threshold of similarity. So according to my experience, it's better to set it not too aggressive, to set it is a number between 0 and 1. 0 means complete identical language, and 1 it means complete different. So I'm working with 0.65. It means that many Czech documents will be downloaded, and then I make a secondary recognition based on character frequency statistics. The algorithm is very simple. First, I count all characters with diacritics that are present in Slovak, and 2 separate groups. One group is sh and ž. If there are not enough or no shs and zs, it usually means the web page encoding has been misdetected, because these are these 2 characters that differ from ISO encoding and Windows encoding. And the third group contains only 1 character, is palatalized L. If the text doesn't contain enough, palatalized L is usually Czech or Croatian or something like that. Yes, it works quite okay. My filters, all my filters work in a uniform way. They have 2 parts: a diagnostic part and a deletion part. And diagnostic part makes statistics where you can set the threshold, and the output of the diagnostic part is the list of identifications of the documents, and the deletion part splits the file into 2 parts, and you can then analyze what has been deleted, whether it's enough or not. Yes, encoding issues. It is not such a problem for Czech and Slovak, but also it sometimes happens that, for example, the UTF-8 encoding is interpreted as 8-bit encoding, and then you have this word with diacritic with very strange capital A's with all these macrons and so on. But it's a large problem with languages that do not have many diacritics, like German and English, because in that case the model is often not able to find out that in fact the web page is encoded in UTF-8, and in UTF-8 you have punctuation that is 3 byte long. Yes, and when you make collocations based on statistics, these words usually get very high score, and you get a list of something that has no sense. And this spam, it's something new in my corpora. Spam in web page is of a bit different character from spam in emails. Spam in emails is targeted on people. Yes, you are expected to read it. So it usually contains more or less normal text, sometimes translated by machine translation, but nevertheless, it's targeted on people. Spam in web pages is not targeted on people, it's targeted on search engines. In the last session, crawling session, that was in October for Slovak, the crawler jumped into something that is called link farm. It's a set of web pages that link each one to each other. It's a measure used by people who are doing so-called search engine optimization. A web page that has many links gets high score. Then all those pages contained artificially generated text, a nonsense text consisting of Slovak words, with a very high proportion of words connected with online casinos, and all of those pages were linked to one particular online casino. So I had to write a special filter to detect that and filter it out, and it turned out that from 1.5 billion tokens of text that was downloaded, over 800 million was of those pages containing that nonsense text. Yes. Before that, 2 years ago, I found something like that in Russian pages. It was not connected with casinos, it was connected with prostitution. What was interesting, although pages were not on Russian servers, but on servers in Armenia. And all were linked to some telephone numbers in Russia, where you can hire various services. I learned many terms in Russian in this area. One of the very interesting terms is individuality. It's one type of prostitutes, individuals, that are not working in a facility, but they are working alone. And I was told that why in Armenia? Russia is one of the few countries in the world where prostitution is illegal, both at the sides of the prostitutes and both at the sides of the customers. It's completely illegal. So you even are not allowed to have a server that is advertising it. Yes. Sorry. Okay. So this was the spam. So I think in the future, it will be a large problem in crawling web corpora. I was told by Brno people that with the new crawl for English, something like that happened with pages advertising medicines like Viagra and things that should officially should be bought only on prescription, but there is a large black market with these products. Yes. Something about annotation. This is the Russian sentence. It is not important what does it mean, but nevertheless it's very interesting. The translation is this. In general, such subject doesn't exist, but we know that it exists. This is the tokenization. This is the part of speech tagging. It's a lemma. It's the text. The Russian corpora usually use this maltext is text set, and we add two more parameters. One is a column that indicates the result of dictionary lookup. 0 means that the token hasn't been found in the dictionary, and the number 1 indicates it has been found in the dictionary, and the lemma was unambiguous. And when it's more than 1, the lemma was ambiguous in usually 1 to 4 way. There is no 2 or more than 1 in Russian, but I suspect it was the author of the language model has simply stripped the other options. just took the first one, yes. And this is the other column in the it's the part of speech tag within this Aranea universal text set. The names of the texts are two characters that are quite easy to remember. It's English or Latin. So this is the list of the text. 10 part of speech word categories from traditional Czech or Slovak linguistics, plus something that we don't have. This is the determiner of article, and plus text for objects that are found in corpora but are traditionally not considered word class, like abbreviations, symbols, numbers. We have two types of others, for content words and for function words. For example, in Slovak morphological model, they have a special word category for participles. Yes, for participles. They do not want to decide whether it's a participle or it's an adjective, so they decided it will be a word class of its own. And for function words, for example, in German, you have something like these separable prefixes. Each morphological model has something peculiar that can be put here. It's punctuations, and mapping error shouldn't occur, but it occurs during the debugging or during the testing of the system. This is the list of corpora we have. By now we have 16 languages, and for some languages we have territorial variants. For English, besides of general English, we have African English. It's English from African domains, from countries where English has at least a semi-official status. There are 24 such countries. 2 of them do not provide any data. One of them is South Sudan, that has a domain, but it doesn't use it because, you know, it's a very poor country. They have different problems not having internet. And there is one other country, I don't remember which, that does have a domain, but we were not able to download anything from the domain. So there are 22 countries. Over 70% of the data downloaded is from South Africa. That's quite natural. In Asia, there are 10 countries of such status. The distribution is quite interesting. 45% India, and on the second place is very interesting, Singapore. Just imagine, India 1 billion inhabitants, and Singapore 5 million. Yes, right. Let's say for Russian, besides the general Russian, we have Russian from Russian domains. In the past, there were only 2 Russian domains, RU and RF written in Cyrillic. But nowadays, with these new types of domains, you have Moscow and Petersburg and things like that are Russian as well. In Russian from non-Russian domains, there are 16 countries where Russian has at least a semi-official status. Besides the 14 countries of former Soviet Union, it's Mongolia and Israel. And you can see the 3 languages with the maximum size. Everything is accessible for free. We have 3 servers, the main server, 2 servers, the main server and a mirror site. One is at the university, one is at the Linguistic Institute. For guest access, you don't even need the password. For full access, you need the password, but you can register for free. So this is how the web page looks like. Besides our corpora, we have two other corpora there. It's for Croatian that has been provided by this Nikola Lubesic from Zagreb, and we have a small Slovene corpus. It's not a web corpus. It's a small sample of a large Slovene corpus that was released under Creative Commons license. So that's why we have it. So without a password, you can look in the first column. You can query via the first column, and if you want to query via the second and third column, you need a password. Yes. We have. I am teaching corpus linguistics for. This semester I had 2 groups with very different languages. I mean, all the students were Slovak, but were studying different languages, and only 2 languages were not present in our corpora that were necessary. It's Swedish and Arabic. So, but I hope we'll do it by the next school year. So, okay, I wanted to show you something online. There will be a conference in January, 100 years of the Naša řeč, our language journal, and I'll have a presentation there. So I'll show you the pictures I'll be presenting there. You are the first who see it. What is the difference between a traditional corpus and a web corpus? NoSketch Engine has a tool that is not present in the context web interface, because context has been forked from the main development of NoSketch Engine just before they introduced this tool. Yes, the tool is called Keywords. It doesn't use any sophisticated statistics. It just compares the normalized frequency plus a constant to deal with the problem where there is no occurrence in one of the corpora. So this is the comparison. Yes, at that time when I was producing this picture, I had only access to SIN 2010. It's a rather old corpus. No, rather old. It's not that old. That I divided into 3 parts: in media, in non-fiction, and in fiction. So this is media. So these are the keywords compared not by the normalized frequency, but by means of our ARF. Yes. So you can see there are mostly last names of politicians, names of the parties, and some keywords that are typical in newspaper discourse. Yes. Mluvčí. There is something, it's an artifact of tokenization, this li, but everything else is typical for newspapers. What is that? This is non-fiction or academic writing. You can see all sorts of nouns related to concepts and to theories, význam, struktury, but even also a function word, nýbrž. It's a discussion, yes? When you try to persuade somebody that my theory is better than something else. Knih struktuře, schéma, znázornění pojmu, jevu, hledisek. You have also some abbreviations that are typical in articles. Over a picture, strana, page. And this is the fiction, yes? Zeptal, pohledl, přikývl, pomyslel, zavrtěl, usmál. These are verbs in past tense, typical for narration, yes? There are so-called verba dicendi. Everything is connected with communication. Usmála, rameny. Interesting are the nouns. It's also pokrčil rameny. Obrátil, paží. Pomyslel, natáhl. But most of the words here are verbs. So here you can see what is the difference. The traditional corpus contains larger proportion of something that is not present, because here you can see the scores. It's not that much, yes. No, and if you are interested, I can also show you my sketch grammars. Are you familiar with the Sketch Engine? It's a tool for analyzing collocational behavior of words. And recently, a new functionality has been introduced that you can compare collocational profiles of a word and its translation side by side. So I try to log onto our server. Unfortunately, Sketch Engine is not for free. So let's take, say, no, we can take Czech one, yes? Bohemiku Majus and say in English. If you take this is the distribution of grammatical categories. It is not so interesting. This is the coordination. Coordination bar comma. The keyword coordinated by comma with the other word of the same part of speech. Pít, kouřit, smoke. Hodovat, veselit se. Fetovat. Marry, relax, cook, bath, gamble. This is the same with preposition. The name of the table denotes the collocational relationship. X indicates the keyword, Y indicates the collocate, regardless of part of speech. If y is on the left-hand side, it's a left-hand side collocate. If y is on the right-hand side, it's right-hand side collocate. This is so-called immediate collocate. It means that between the collocate and the keyword, there is nothing. But it's not dogmatically nothing, for there can be preposition there, and there also can be article if a language has articles. So, and then there is a series of tables. Noun from the left-hand side, noun from the right-hand side. So for a verb, this is the most interesting table. What's being drunk? Yes, alcohol, kafe, čaj, doušek, tea, beer, alcohol, soda. Despite the fact that the texts are completely unrelated, the language have something in common. Yes. This tool can find parallel structures in those unrelated texts. This is what I was speaking about. You can use the large corpus of unrelated text for contrastive research. Great. And then you have adverb. For adverb, we don't distinguish between the left-hand side and the right-hand side. It's because the corpus is not parsed. We don't know the adverb. What does the adverb modify? Whether the verb or something else. We just know that the adverb is there. Prostě nadměrně nalačno, střídmě. According to my experience, if a word is a good translation equivalent, the tables are up to 50% the same. Maybe not at the same positions, but contain the same keywords. Yes? It's a nice tool for, say, bilingual lexicography. You can analyze what is a frequent collocation, what would be a good example in the dictionary, and you can also analyze what is not there and try to explain why is it not there. It may be a cultural difference, or maybe the translation equivalent for that particular collocation is not straightforward. Yes. That is everything about all word classes that have not been covered by the previous one. Here usually you have pronouns, numerals, and things like that, and then you have prepositions. Now we can try to do it for Czech and Slovak as well. And in that case, I suspect the similarity would be even much greater. Interesting that drink and smoke is the same as in English. Yes, it somehow goes together. The association measure that is used for sorting the collocations is log dice. The differences are not that great, so Here you have stop and stop. It's almost the same, so the order is not that important. But the important is that it's there. So this is the most interesting table. Alkohol, kafe, čaj, alkohol, tekutina, káva, dúšok. Almost everything is there, yes? This is a tool that is being used by our lexicographers for producing a Czech to Slovak dictionary. Nealko. This is it, yet? Nealko is something that is not used very much in Slovak, but in Czech it's very high. So it might be indicating into dictionary that something like that exists in Czech. Slazený, sladený. It's no. Yes, it's bylinkový, balený, zázvorový. So this is about all I wanted to show you. And I hope you will be using our corpora. Aranea corpora are installed at the Czech National Corpus servers, but not always the newest version, because they don't like updating it every half a year. So especially these three new ones, the largest Czech and the largest Slovak and the largest Russian, is not there yet. And if you want to work with keywords, so it's not possible there because the functionality is not present in the server yet. So it's a very nice tool, as you have seen. It's almost without any verb. We just set the languages and make the subcorpus, and you can compare how it differs from the other corpus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your information. And now I open the floor. Thank you very much for your information. And now I open the floor for questions on, I wanted to say answers, questions, answers, and remarks and further comments.
Maybe I should also mention the data is available. Yeah, I don't have any problem to give it to anything in source form, either in source form or annotated or even deduplicated. Several papers have been written using my papers. There is a group of 2 Russians and 1 Japanese guy in Tokyo who are working in word embeddings, and they used both my English and Russian corpus for their, I don't know what, disambiguating the aspect in Russian.
I only have one just idea that I would be interested in some printed or published cases that take these tables as their material. That would be, I think somehow it seemed that it offers a lot of food for thought, but I can't get it out now. But I think it would be good if you have some reference to some paper or something.
Unfortunately, nothing large scale. There are some examples in my paper from Eurolex 2 years ago, also from my paper from TSD 2 years ago. But you know, I wanted to compare more than 2 languages, so and there was a space limit, so I was simply limited by the number of pages. But I can provide you with some tables. Just give me the word, and I'll generate for you the tables. And there was a handout containing all these tables. I think, if I remember correctly, I picked up one noun, one adjective, one verb, and one numeral. Four languages: English, German, Russian, and French, I think. Yes. And it was quite interesting to compare. For example, in German, you don't have these typical adjective and noun combinations, because many things that in Slovak, Czech, or in Russian is an adjective plus noun combination. In German, is a compound.
It is a compound. Yeah.
Oh, I think it was wine. So you don't have red wine as 2 words, but you have it as 1 word. It doesn't appear in the table. Yeah. And in French, you have usually the adjective is in the attributive position is usually the right-hand side of a noun. So you have to, when you are watching at the tables, you have to take it into account. The same I think it's in Polish. In Polish, usually the nouns, the adjectives are from the right-hand side.
What does mean the word prsník? The last column.
Second word in the last column.
Yeah, prsník. It is a type of tea or what?
No, prsník. It's a breast. Women's breast.
Simply breast. Not
one of 2. Okay.
So I understand. So another question: we have no counterpart in Czech for sicení. Sicená minerálka. How do we tell it in Czech?
This is the advantage of Sketch Engine. There are several other systems that are pretending to do the same. Yes, the tables, they generally are the same. But the Sketch Engine, the tables are coordinated with the concordances. You can see the concordance for everything that's there. And the concordance you get can be input to other filtration and modification. So I don't know any other system capable of doing things like that. You can do frequency statistics, you can do manual annotations, yes.
Thank you. I know now.
Yes, you can have a look, yes.
So, my question concerns word sketch grammar. Do you have the same word sketch grammar for all languages in Aranea Corpora, or?
Yes, basically the same. The main difference is that for languages where that have articles, the number of intermediate words is increased by 1, and for German, I have increased the intermediate words for verb on the right-hand side, because you know, as Patrick Hex keeps saying, you start reading a German sentence, and you will find out what is the verb on the next page only. Yes, but it's not that. I think it's 8. I'm generating the sketch grammar by one program from basically 2 sources. So with articles and without articles. And because I'm writing the sketch grammar based on this Aranean text set, that's why it's possible to do it in this compatible way. I don't care about the subcategories, so I don't care about the agreement, because it turned out that it's not that important. The words that are in the very first places in the tables, I simply pulled out by the statistics. Some random combinations without agreement simply do not appear there because they are not so frequent. Yes, all frequent cases are there. Yes. Of course, it could have been done better, but this is how it works by now. And maybe next time I'll try to improve it, but I usually prefer having a version and then collecting the feedback from the users, because we can hardly imagine what users would like to do, and only after analyzing their complaints we can do some improvements. What is the problem is the quality of annotation still, and for us for lexicographers in annotation, the most important thing is the lemmatization. Even if a part of speech is not correct, but it's okay. But if a lemma is not correct, it's a great problem, because the word is not found. And that's why we have introduced the explicit parameter for the situation when the word was not found in the dictionary. We can use it in searches, and then we can try to improve the dictionary by analyzing what is frequent there and what is not.
I have one question which is pretty minor. It concerns the language identification. You had in one group Russian something, then Russian external and something. How this language identification is?
I have only one, for each language I have only one model. The input for the model is the sample of text that you provide. Yes, the way how it's done is problematic for various reasons. It works well only in the cases where the size of the text derived from a web page is approximately the same as the size of the sample. It doesn't work for the very short text. It doesn't work for much longer text. So that's why I have decided to set the threshold rather not very aggressively, and then to do this secondary identification. And regarding Russian, I know there is a lot of Ukrainian text in Russian, but it's also an interesting observation. When you are crawling the internet and you have two internets, say Russian and Ukrainian, and the Russian is very large, you have seldom links from Russian to Ukrainian, but you have a lot of links from Ukrainians to Russian. So when you are crawling the Russian internet without any limitation, you can limit the top-level domains or other things that what you are doing. So for Russian there is not a problem. It's a problem for Ukrainian, because if it jumps to the Russian part of the internet, it will rarely jump again. So for Ukrainian, you have to restrict it to Ukrainian only, or to simply to put Russian domains in blacklist.
So, all the
finally, I had just an maybe crazy idea. Suppose you could run all these data through a syntactic parser and get dependencies. It would probably take ages, but hopefully it would be slightly faster than reading. So would it be possible and perhaps interesting to get the sketches, instead of basing them on adjacent words, basing them on what the parser means, that is a syntactic dependency?
Yes, I hope that I will live long enough to be able to do that. Yes, after all these tools be able, I'm intending to include information on syntax into sketches. This is a fairly primitive way, and it sort of works for most of situations, but it fails in many other situations where syntactic information is necessary. That's why I'm offering you the data. You can try to parse it syntactically. Maybe not all of it, but for some languages sample.
Well, thank you. I think it's nice to finish by looking forward. So thank you very much again for your presentation. Thank you for presence. And I have to announce that this is the last session of our seminar before Christmas. I hope to meet all of you at our Christmas meeting, which is 2 weeks from today. Yes, 2 weeks from today. But if someone does not intend or cannot come, so I would like to wish you Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year. And we do hope to meet in January, at least at one of our seminars. But let's see. So, have a nice weekend first, have a nice Christmas, and hope to see you. Bye. Thank you very much.